Hey everybody, and welcome to the Fart Fetish Podcast once again. The Fart Fetish Podcast is where we seek to find the answer to what is fart fetish? Where might it come from? How is it enjoyed? And what are the people like who have this fetish and other fetishes too? We do this on the first Friday of every month on almost all major podcast platforms and at fartfetishpodcast.com. We're also now on YouTube and YouTube Music, so check us out there if that's where you get your podcasts. You can also enjoy erotic fart stories, captions, and videos at thefartcloset.com and support the podcast at the same time. That's thefartcloset.com. And now I'd like to welcome Stee to the podcast. Stee is a straight fetishist in a relationship that unfortunately does not meet his fetish intimacy desires. Described by Stee for himself as a somewhat invasive fetish, we talk about the struggles of a mismatch in a partner's level of comfortability around aspects like farting, as well as a number of other topics, including scat and golden showers, the importance of sexual exploration and exposure, the fleeting nature of farts, and relationships in a post-honeymoon period. We've got that and more on this episode of the Fart Fetish Podcast. Thanks very much for being here, Stee. Why don't we start with a little bit about yourself and what this fetish looks like for you?
Okay, right. Well, where to start? I'm 36 years old, straight. It is only females that this like fetish applies to me for. I've had the fetish for a very long time. Like, really, if I proper delve into it, it probably goes back to like childhood times more than anything. It is very. I don't know how to word it without sounding like the derogatory term, but like slightly pervy, like to most people. But I've been into it for a long time. It started off as something humorous, but then when obviously hearing women do it, it started turning it a little bit more taboo, so to speak.
For sure. Interesting that you use the term pervy too, because I was thinking about it. It's like, in a way, aren't we all kind of pervy? I mean, I could be wrong about the definitionally, but it seems like it is kind of given the taboo nature of it and how, in the wild, it's almost requires a pervy nature to like, listen in the bathroom. And I'm not suggesting people do these things, but there is a hidden and secret nature to this fetish for many people. And it seems like pervy almost becomes associated with it, I feel. What do you think about that?
100%. It's more than anything. I think like people use the term pervy because it's something that's like classed as different. So as soon as there's like a different aspect of it, anything abnormal, like this fetish, like acrophilia in general, or foot fetish, any other fetish, it's automatically you get put in the same category as like being pervy. Like regardless of what it is. It's mainly blokes, that have gone through time looking on the internet and seeing like these different fetishes and things like that. Like for us blokes, it's probably just classed as normal, but it's when women frown upon it because they're the ones that are obviously the ones that are getting looked at and ogled, like so to speak, like whether it's from their feet to their arse to the breasts to any part of them that us blokes desire of them. It can be put in the same category as pervy if the women don't like it.
It's true. And I think you mentioned having this fairly young, or at least that's what I gathered, that I think that also can increase that because for me, I wasn't even in puberty when I was already masturbating to these type of thoughts. So there is already a pervy nature to, going into your sexual development, maybe, before a lot of your classmates. I don't think it's abnormal. I think a lot of kids go through it sometimes, but I also think there's just an odd nature to it, and then that automatically gets associated with pervy. Maybe it's a word that even needs to be decoupled from odd because it almost seems like they almost seem like synonyms, and I don't think they are in definitional terms.
I agree. Completely agree with that. When I say like it started off like quite young, it's like I've always been around it. Like my family have never like hidden anything from it. Like my mum and dad have always been quite open with it. My brother and sister, like the same, that they're not bothered. Like they're aware of my fetish and stuff. They don't ask questions and delve too much because obviously with it being family, talking about sex and things like that, it doesn't really wash at the tea table, so to speak. So I've been exposed to like farts and things like that, and not caring about them, and not thinking that, oh, you should shy away from it. But then since I've got with my latest partner, I've seen how she's been brought up, and it's just like, wow, like people are just brought up completely different. And it's no disrespect to how people are brought up, but it's just how people foresee the world, and how they are told, like, don't be like that, that's not ladylike, etc. Whereas my dad was telling my sister, sod it, fart all you like, it's a natural bodily function.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, do you have like a defining moment where you think that like the fetish kind of solidified, or has it just like always been underlying, or what do you think? How do you think that came about?
Well, it got solidified properly, like more than anything, when like I was in a relationship with a partner who, I'm definitely not going to divulge the name of her. It was something I don't really want to ever think about again. But in this situation, it was like she was abstaining. We hadn't done anything like sexually related for months and months. It was a really like, it was a dull relationship. I obviously wait for her to go to bed and things like that, and then I would have a look on like the internet, and it started off more than anything because of just like an arse fetish, and like looking at like arse worship and things like that. And there was one category I stumbled across, which was a sleeping tushy, and it was like these two beautiful, like obviously actors, but they were lesbians and things like that. And the way how they acted, just like around like the arsehole, the sniffing of it and things like that. And I was just like, wow, this is actually quite kinky. And that's when it started. It started like obviously just around the bum, and then obviously with carrying on searching with obviously like internet algorithms and things like that, I ended up stumbling across like these two like kind of middle-aged women. They weren't anything special, and it came up like Fart Fetish. I think I was on X Hamster at the time, and stumbled across these women, and I watched that, and I was just like, wow, this is actually something I could actually get into. Because for me, I saw it as like a category where is really unique to me, and I obviously haven't heard many people talking about it or anything like that. And I'm kind of one of these far out people that a lot of people will be like, what? And I'm just like, that's normal for me. But to a lot of people, they'll just be like, that's weird, mate. And I'm just, I don't care, to be honest, what other people think. I just do what I think is right for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Do you think that the fetish may be formed, whether it be genetically or through the nurturing in your family, and then basically took a pause until you entered this essentially sexless relationship? So the discovery of such essentially reawakened something that may have been inside you already, but from earlier in your life.
That's not a bad question, but it's also one of those questions that, like, can't be answered unless like you proper delve into the cerebral thoughts of like what's actually gone on. But there's a massive plausibility in it, because obviously if you're exposed to like things like that from a really young age, it kind of like manifests itself in your brain, as you said. And it's potentially like, it did take a pause when I started like getting into proper relationships and things like that, and then seeing how women were that aren't like my mum or my sister that didn't care. It then got to a point where they're like, oh, I can't do it in front of my partner and things like that. But then I don't know. It's hard to give you a straight answer without sounding like I'm trying to avoid it. I would probably go with no. I don't think it took a pause. I'd probably say it's like I just wasn't really exploring the right categories until I stumbled across it.
Yeah, perhaps you didn't have a need to get into that type of sexuality because more readily available sexuality was available to you, it seems.
Yeah.
Which is great. That is great, because it's an interesting question. Because I mean, I'm in the same boat. My family was it wasn't like a joke, but just free around the bathroom. It's all normal and natural. But I started developing that fetish quite early. Like, it was already in like first grade that had already become a fetish, and the domination aspect as well, which is, while the farting might be easily tied back to my family, the domination is a little harder to pin down. But the reason I brought it up is just it's a curious question, because in terms of uniqueness, I mean, there's lots of unique fetishes out there. There's feet, there's balloons, there's 500 line items on a BDSM checklist. So there's a plethora, a whole world of fetishes. I'm just curious if it's the background of people like you and me that brings us into developing a fart fetish specifically because it is around us in our family specifically. It's a curious question for sure.
Yeah, it's a massive plausibility, and I completely back what you're saying as well. Like, it has elements of it, but then just thinking about like what you said about like the pause thing and things like that. That's what kind of like threw me off, because I was just like, I don't really know. But then when you explained it, then and saying like obviously like growing up with it and stuff, maybe it's been in there all along, but I've never actually like ignited that flame until I saw it like on X Hamster.
For sure, for sure. What like themes and like aspects of the fetish do you like? Like, how do you take the fetish?
I'm probably not so much into the whole domineering side of it. At the same time, I've never been exposed to it, and I would be lying if I said I haven't seen the videos of it and got turned on by him and stuff. But the whole thing of it, the fact that it's just like so intimate to that person, it's like if you're in a relationship with someone. Like that person, when she's at work, she won't be around the workplace farting and things like that. She saves that for when she's at home and she's doing it around you. And I just feel that level of intimacy and trust. I think that just tips it over the edge, like for me, to make it think, wow, this person who's next to me is like really, really like into me, because she feels comfortable around me. She can just let herself go. She doesn't have to have a shower if she doesn't want to. She can just do what the hell she wants, and she will know full well that I will 100% always be after her sexually.
Sure. So it's like I would classify it then maybe like I call in the porn world, it's like the girlfriend experience, but it's like a playfulness and freeness that is attractive.
Yeah.
It's taboo. It can be taboo. It could be intimacy. I feel like those two are one and the same, maybe on different sides of the spectrum, but essentially taboo is intimacy because it's an intimate act.
Yeah.
So I get that. That makes a lot of sense. That's very cool. I mean, obviously, I am into the domination aspect, but I always learn so much talking to people that enjoy the more loving aspect, because I mean, it's not one I experience. Like, I can empathize with, I can, feel the feelings necessarily, but I don't necessarily get aroused in that way. So it is interesting to hear about it. Are there like other fetishes that need to go with it for you, or is it like strictly fart fetish? Is it?
Well, it's just fart fetish and arse worship. Basically, I'm just a massive fan of like the woman's derriere, so to speak. It's just everything about it. I love the smell, the look, like the view when she's in like a doggy position and things like that, and she's just everything about it for me is just like all the back end. And I kind of feel awful on the missus sometimes, because it's like when I'm telling her to like turn over, like I know what she thinks. Sometimes she thinks, oh, he doesn't want to look at me and stuff, but she doesn't, because she's kind of like shies away from this side of things. She doesn't understand what it does for me when I see her in these other positions. Like, she just wants me to be intimate with her face, like, just kissing her and things like that, and just showing her 100% commitment to the front end. Whereas just like, no, that's without sounding awful, I love you, but if I'm honest, if I want to get off, I want to see your bum.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I imagine that that can be understood. I mean, it's not, not everyone is going to be the same, but I mean, that seems like an understandable aspect. Like, I'm not a heavy relationship man, so I can't tell you right or wrong or which way to go or whatever, but that seems like understandable. Like, I feel like with the right pitch or the right communication, that could be relayed. But I'm sure you have tried. I'm sure you've tried to get this across.
Oh yeah, yeah, massively. It's again, I think I touched upon this like during like emails and stuff. Like, it's hard with my partner because like she's so withdrawn from like a lot of things like sexually and that, and it is hard for her to comprehend what I want out of the relationship. Whereas she wants love, cuddles, and things like that, and she's quite happy to keep it on page one of the Kama Sutra or the fetish books and things like that. Whereas I don't have any holes barred. Like, I'm willing to explore everything. If she wants to like do anything with me, I'm just like, yeah, I'll try everything once before I have an opinion on anything. It sucks that not everybody has that same outlook on things, but at the same time, I've got to respect people's decisions and how they were brought up, etc. As much as it annoys me sometimes, I've got to understand that the fact that she's not the same as me, and I do have to try and like get it when I can.
For sure. I do though think that that does diminish your feelings. Like I appreciate how sensitive, how respectful you're being towards your partner's hesitancy, toward her maybe lack of exploration, what have you. But I have to also say that I worry that that is going to put you in a place of resentment or whatever over time, especially if it becomes something that you are communicating now, but perhaps in the future maybe it becomes a stumbling block that you can't even communicate about it. And like, this is not me, like, fuck me, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm not giving you like advice, but I'm saying, looking at it from the outside, I worry that you're not giving enough credence to your own needs and desires.
Oh, 100%, and it's an ongoing like argument that we have, when it comes down to like sex in general, really, because it's like I feel sometimes like I don't have it enough, and but bringing that up with my partner and stuff, it's always like World War III, and I'm just like, no, I'm not trying to have an argument. I just want to talk to you about it, but it's always like stepping on eggshells with it, and because she has lived a sheltered life maybe a little bit harsh, like she's lived a life where she's been withdrawn from someone who's as sexually open as what I am when it comes down to like fetishes and things like that. I just feel that, like, not just my partner, but there's a lot of people out there that have like basically lived a life like in a closet where they haven't been able to just open up and just be themselves because they've grown up around like the whole thing, like, oh, don't do that, that's not very ladylike, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to do it this way or else like he won't be happy with you and stuff. And then now she's got with me, she's now like, oh my god, this lad's completely different. It's thrown like all, I don't know what you call it, like all her like inner feelings like around her head basically. So she's like, everything that I've learned is now different with this lad because this lad doesn't care. This lad wants me to just be what I would be like if I was on my own. I can fart in bed next to him. Like, he's not going to be bothered. I can. She burps like buggery around me. It's, to be honest, it's quite annoying how much she burps. I think she burps that much. She's got no gas left in her to fart. I think that's why she doesn't fart that much around me anyway. But going off what you were saying about like my own feelings and things like that, it is hard. I'm like, I'd be lying if I said like it doesn't affect me. But we have such a good like friendship relationship as well, and we do have sex frequent. It's just like her opening up herself to that level of intimacy. I think it's potentially too much, but at the end of the day, she knows what I'm like. So I know it doesn't really answer your question, but equally it doesn't answer mine. And I've got a lot of unanswered questions that she avoids answering as well. It's quite hard.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I didn't figure we were gonna like solve this. I just did wanna talk it through, and you're not gonna be the only one in this position. So I just want people to hear this, because it is super important. I think there are two things. I mean, the first thing I want to say is communication is vastly important, and I assumed maybe it was just America, but perhaps the world over, it's really not given the proper due that it is. Like, we all say, like, oh, we're great communicators, we're transparent, blah 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 blah. We all think that. I think when it comes time to actually doing it, we stumble and we have trouble, maybe saying what we want to say, relaying it, feeling comfortable saying it. And that probably attributes to the same thing you said, is a lot of people are unfortunately repressed. I think getting out of repression for many people is through trauma. I don't think it's the only way, but Another way is probably gaining life experience in positive ways, but trauma is another way to gain life experience, unfortunately. That's why I often like, I feel like I have trouble finding people I'd like to get to know better, because there's an aura of just simplicity may not be the right word, but simple-minded thinking in terms of a way a lot of people think. They're not really expanding outside of what I call checkbox mentality. I'm this age, I better have a kid. I'm this age, I better be married. I'm this age. You're not thinking about why you're doing these things. You're just like, I need to hit these milestones at a certain time, to-do list checked, done. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people aren't acting like that, but I feel like the way people, they get together in relationships, they're almost racing through the milestones without looking at, like, what job do I have? What partner do I have? Is this the life I wanted to go forward with? And I think repression is a big part of that. We don't get to explore, or we're not encouraged to explore. We have expectations. We have to make, this much income by this part of our life. We need a house. We need a family, yet. And we're not living life. That's why I often on this show, I talk about how the human elements have kind of, as we become a society, the human elements, like farting, like shitting, this and that, start to drift away. And some of them may be good. Maybe we don't need to know about people shitting, but there are aspects of humanity. Why is burping okay? It goes back to the same thing. Like, why is burping fine, but farting in public is not? Why has that become taboo? And I'm not saying you and I are going to have the answers to these questions, but the questions need to be asked for, I think, any change to be made. And I think over time it will, as long as people keep knocking on these doors, as it were, in terms of letting their friends, or their close friends, their partners, whatever is comfortable to them, know about this fetish, because that is how I believe change comes about.
I just hope it does. I just hope there are, like, more people out there that are a little bit more open about it, and mainly girls. I think it's girls. Girls are the ones that are hiding in the closet more than anything, about maybe not so much the fetish, but about, like, doing it, because lads just don't care. Like, it's never a thing with a bloke where they're just like, oh god, I can't fight in front of my partner, because after, like, the second date, the lads seem to be a lot more comfortable than what women are, and they're not bothered, like, whether they've had go to the gym and they've got protein shake farts and they bloody stink, but they're just not bothered about doing it in front of the partner that they've only known for a couple of weeks. Whereas a woman, it's like, I've been with my partner now, it's getting on 4 years this year, and I've probably heard a fart a handful of times, and it's just like, it's nothing that you can get excited about, because it's over within seconds, and it's never during anything sexually related as well.
It's true. And, I can sympathize. I'm getting a bit off topic, but I sympathize with like, my ex. We did videos together, but she wasn't like a gassy person normally or regularly. Like, she never really farted outside of us making content together. It just wasn't what she wanted to do. And, like, that wasn't bothersome to me. We had a strange relationship regardless. I guess I got my jollies through the content. It was just, I just wonder about that too. Like, some women just simply aren't gassy. Now it seems like your girlfriend, your fiance, right?
Yeah.
Your fiance, it seems like, is gassy because she is burping. So there is something inside there, but it's not coming out the right end.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, it's an ongoing joke with me and her. Just said to her, like, instead of just, like, burping, because she's so vocal with her burps, like, she burps like you expect, like, a 50-year-old trucker who's just gulped a full gallon of 7-Up, and she's just proper belches, and I'm just like, can you not just, like, hold that in your stomach a little bit longer, and it might just pass out the other end. I feel she's more ladylike than what she thinks, and I think she will stand firm on it. I don't think there's any way of, like, ever changing it, regardless of it being for my fetish. I just don't ever think she will do it. I'll just have to go through my life with her where she might just do it accidentally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the sound of that, but we already talked about that. I want you to be happy for sure. I want you both to be happy. Like, there's no, I have no ill will towards your fiance either. But you as the fetishist, I do care about you. being happy, not being resentful, getting what you want in life, and not, at the very least, having the freedom to get it, rather than I don't want you to feel trapped. Obviously, you sound like you have an amazing relationship, regardless of the fetish, which
Yeah.
that's amazing, and hard to ask. It's not easy to come by. So I appreciate you being committed to that as well.
Yeah, no, she's watching. She's absolutely great, and like I said, like we have so much fun together. Like we're constantly laughing and things like that. It's just this one aspect that I would love to get out of her, but it's just asking someone to change is quite a big thing, regardless of what the needs for. It is a massive like step, and a lot of people will look at that as like trying to be controlling, and that's far from what I want, because I'm so laid back when it comes down to a lot of things, and I just don't want her to feel uncomfortable as well. If she was to do it, I want her to be 100% comfortable with it and not care. And if she is uncomfortable with it, then I won't do it to her. It's not. I don't feel it's my responsibility to make her feel like out of place, so to speak.
No, sure. That's amazing. And you know what? I will say I took the negative route on this, but I will say, like, her being so free with burping, it's possible this may be on the horizon for you at some point. It may change.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying about her and burping, that seems like a clear indication that the stepping stones can be laid to that path. So, you never know. The world is crazy.
I'm remaining positive.
Yeah, nice. We talked over email about scat, and you mentioned you're not like into it, not entirely into it, but maybe not grossed about it. What's been your mental or physical experimentation with scat?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't had any experimental. The closest thing we've had to scat is like when me and my partner first got together. Like we were doing lots of like anal related stuff, and like I was obviously exploring around, like using my hands and things like that. And I got, obviously, it's not the cleanest area unless like she pre-douches before we do anything. But I got a little bit of scat on my finger. I wasn't bothered. It didn't put me off. I'm not grossed out by any bodily fluids or functions or anything like that. So if she was to, like, again, going into the fart fetish thing, like if she was to sit on my face and potentially like let out a fart and maybe like a little bit of scat came out and something, I'm not bothered. I won't be grossed out. I won't like throw up all over the like bedding or anything like that. I'll probably laugh, and like she might be absolutely like gutted and like upset and things like that, and I'll just be like, I'm not bothered. I'm really not bothered, and try and comfort her in that way to show that I don't care. I don't care about stuff like that. It's a bodily function. Shit happens, no pun intended.
For sure. No, absolutely. I had a similar experience during a shoot one time, and I had a similar reaction as well. It's just like, I don't think she was freaked out, but it was definitely like just like, we stop and clean up or whatever. But it's just like, yeah, it's not a huge deal. But I think there's also probably a difference between like an accidental shart or something like that and going in for a like full toilet session.
Yeah,
I think that there's a completely different mentality. Like I've had recently a golden shower, and like I'll tell you, in fantasy, a golden shower seems very hot. In practice, it's not the greatest. For me, I'm sure some people love it, but for me, it's just like, in the context of maybe, being dominated, and it's like, now I'm going to piss on you. It's like, oh, that might work. But like, just like walking from one room to another, it's like, now we're going to get in the bathtub. It's like, there's nothing organic about this. There's nothing, it feels so manufactured that it's just like, there's no aura here. Whereas, like eating someone else on the bed, whether they fart, whether they don't fart, that can all stay really relatively hot because you're staying in that scene. If they piss, if in a practical world they could just piss on you right in the bed, that might be super hot, because it's just like, fuck you, I'm just gonna fucking piss on you right here. But the practicalities of like, well, we need to go somewhere where it's not gonna stain. It's just like, oh well, this is not fun anymore.
Yeah, no, I completely appreciate that, and like obviously the admin of cleaning up like after like a session that could involve like golden showers or potentially scat is it is quite hard. It's gonna have to polythene sheets out so it doesn't like knacker the carpet and the bedding, like you said, and things like that. But going off what you're saying about like golden showers and stuff, it's like it doesn't necessarily have to be like golden showers. Like I was with a girl that had like this serious issue with like squirting and things like that. And literally, whenever she was to like ride my face, she would just literally just gush everywhere. And for me, it was like I felt like a porn star. I felt like I was absolutely amazing. But then I found out she was just super sensitive. Like I could literally go down on her, my nose could touch a clit, and then she would just squirt. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought. But it was super erotic knowing that I could still make her do that, and it was similar to a golden shower.
Of course. Yeah. Would you say like you're pretty private or public about your fetishes? Do you talk about like friends, just your partners you've been with? What's your norm?
I'm open. I chat to my workmates about it. I chat to my mates outside of work and stuff. Like they all know what I'm like, and they all have like a similar reaction. Like they all think I'm weird and things like that. And I'm just like, if you actually sat and actually watched a video yourself, and you can see how erotic it actually is to a degree, and they're like, no. And I'm like, well, you can't have an opinion then. I can have an opinion on it because I've searched it for years. I've got numerous videos like go-to ones that I just love, but it's just what's like these people just live a life of just like watching bog standard porn, like men, women, and obviously like lesbians and things like that. And I'm just like, you can't have an opinion unless you've explored these different categories. Like you mentioned before about different fetishes, about like balloons and clowns and, well, I don't think you mentioned clowns, but they are there. And like all these fetishes aren't to everyone's taste. But for people to have an opinion on the likes of our fetish, I think it's quite like, what's the word? It's quite primitive of them. Like they're not sitting down and thinking about it and going, do you know what? There's that many fetishes out there. Like maybe there might be a weird one that I like.
Yeah, it's weird. I think it's a symptom of communication, or also you said repression as well, because I think maybe people are afraid to find out if they like these things, or they're just not. Again, they're not encouraged or taught to explore. Or yeah, maybe it is fear. Maybe they just don't want to know if they are into it. I know some people definitely have talked about that, whether it be in media or in life. I think there are some things, you I don't think I'm this type of person, but I definitely know of people that I don't want to know about that fetish. Maybe I would, be into it, and then what would my life be like at that point? But at the same time, I don't think there's anything positive in not exploring. Like I agree with you talking to your mates about at least exploring. I mean, you didn't necessarily say that, but it's true. You don't know what's inside of you, what your
Exactly.
upbringing or whatever, what your nurture, what your life, what your genes themselves may have in store for you if you don't go looking at it. I think maybe too, it's the whole. I don't know if you recall this. I seem like it's happening less these days, but like if you go to any like straight proctophilia or fart fetish like websites, if anyone felt like they got tricked into seeing like a guy farting or whatever, there's like an outrage. And it's like, yeah, sure, like that wasn't what you wanted to see, but like it is just another piece of content for other people. Like there's no need to be hateful or negative towards it. You just move on. Like, oh, oops. It's just interesting. It's interesting. People have such a barrier to curiosity, even.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. 100%.
You talked to me about having, you had 3 serious partners that you told about the fetish. Can you talk about, and one of them being your fiance? Can you talk about like what the reaction was, or maybe the most prominent reaction that you can recall in telling at least one of these women?
The first one, like who was like when I discovered it, just discovered the fetish and stuff. She wasn't like overly enthralled or like willing to experiment with it. She wasn't repulsed. She was a little bit like, she kind of like looked at me with a bit of a Sean Connery eyebrow and was like, what? And I was just like, well, it's just something that we could try. It doesn't cost any money. It's just just something that we could do. If you want to fart, I'm there. Like, let me know. And it never manifested into anything. She never did it for me, or anything like that. And shortly after, we ended up divorcing anyway. It wasn't anything. It wasn't anything to do with the fetish. Just obviously, you move on in your head. Basically, we got married too soon. Basically, then the second partner who I spoke to, in all fairness, she was great with it. It was just like bad timings more than anything. It's like she was willing to try, but then it never happened. If you know what I mean, like if we were in the bedroom and we were doing like sexual things and things like that, it would be when her ass is away from me. That's when like I'd hear it, and she was like, "Oh, I could have done that for you then," but without her basically like sitting on my face and dominating me for hours and hours and hours, waiting for another one to come along. You've got to try and be there, like, but you've got to trust that person and to say, right, I've got one coming, and then that's when you can get into position. But it never normally happens like that, because in the real world, sex only lasts an hour.
Yeah, that's the problem too with farts. They do kind of come upon us rather than like you can hold your pee, you can hold your scat. For the most part, I'm not saying it's good to do so, but like there's a timing to it. You're not like you don't have the urge and you just have to go right that moment. You can take it away. Whereas farting, it's just like it's almost like a cough or a sneeze. It's just like, oops, it's gone. The factors have to align in the right way, or they're just an incredibly gassy person, or specifically got gassy for the occasion. It's almost like there's a preparation involved. Like I've definitely ran into that with pro dom, even being with a dominatrix for like 4 hours. It's not necessarily gonna come up that they're going to fart. As much as like, oh, this is what I paid for. It's like, what are you gonna do? Like squeeze the ass until something comes? Like it's not gonna work.
The only way to do it is like what they do in the Brazilian like fart fetch things. When they put that like little air pump in and things like that. But I don't think many girlfriends and partners are gonna sit there on all fours whilst you pump a bit of air into them and wait for them to do it. I think it ruins it. If you're doing something sexually, I think it ruins the whole like ambience of like anything sexually related. If you go and get a dust blower to blow up a bum just so she can like fart on you, like if you were to have sex, you want it to flow smoothly.
Sure. As I understand it, you can do it with your mouth as well. I have no experience, but that's my understanding in like watching at least one domination pornography, and then people were commenting about like how essentially he's blowing air up her ass, which I don't know if it was ever true or not, but I think that is possible to do so.
Surely, like biologically, the only way to do that is like it's going to have to be during like anal play, so like they're gaping a little bit, because even when like you're just doing like analingus, I don't think you can blow enough air in like with your tongue, because most of it comes out and
it's gonna blow back in your face. Yeah.
But me and my current partner now, like I've just got her into doing like a full arc position. For me, it's the most amazing view in the world and stuff. But as soon as I touch like a bum, she like queefs, and for me it's funny, and I love that as well. I do like vaginal farts and stuff. But for her, it puts her off a little bit, and she like starts giggling, or she'll like change position, and I'm just like, no, I love that. Just keep doing it. But then I then start thinking about what she's feeling comfortable with, and that's probably where I'm not as hardy as what could potentially be, and I'm thinking of her too much, like without sounding like I'm being derogatory towards her.
For sure. Yeah, I get that. Well, and it's interesting because one thing you mentioned in the email, and it kind of ties into this, is an aspect of the fetish you enjoy is that trust.
Yeah.
And and I'm quoting you here. It says, the person doing it for me is purely at my disposal of intimacy, since it's a rather invasive kink. Can you talk to me about more about what you mean about that?
Yeah, what I'm saying by like invasive is obviously like it's obviously just me and the person involved in this situation. I would love it to be my partner. no one else gets that privilege to hear her fart, smell her fart, and things like that. So for me, with it being an invasive kink, it means like it's just me and her. No one else like on this planet will ever experience that, unless obviously she goes and finds someone exactly like me if we weren't to work out and stuff. So it's I don't know. It's maybe I got my words mixed up, but I'd probably stand by it and say, for me, it is an invasive kink because it's something that makes her feel a little bit uncomfortable to a degree, but she's also willing to do it for me if she was to do it.
Sure. Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and you'd mentioned earlier the you'd started up looking ass sniffing and tushy porn. You said that was during your relationship that was without sex. That was not having like a lot of sexual relationship.
Yeah.
Did you notice you searching out any porn similar to that before at any time in your life, or was that like the first time?
No, well, if I'm completely honest with you, like all through growing up, with us being a family of five and things like that, and we only had one computer, and it was like downstairs, like underneath the stairs and stuff. So everybody was like walking in and out. You could not do anything like sexual related. So when I got this first partner who started off very sexual, everything was all good. I didn't warrant the need for it or anything like that. And then when she started abstaining, that's when I then started going on like my PlayStation internet and like having a look at like certain arse worship videos, other rimming videos, etc. And then things like I said before, like things just progressed like in the algorithm, like arse related things. And then I was just like, ooh, there's a fine one here. I thought it would be funny, if I'm honest. Like, so I started watching it and I did start laughing, but then I was just like, the more I watched it, the more I was just like, this is actually like really getting me going. And it was from that moment I then started going on like fartfantasy.com and Kelsey Obsession stuff.
Was that moment the first time you'd really like gone toward ass related things after that exploration of pornography online, or had you done ass related things in the past? I guess ass worship related things.
Yeah, well, when I first got with my first partner and stuff, I kind of like loved ass, but she was like proper against it and wouldn't let me like anywhere near it and stuff. So I was like, all right, I've got to get what I can really. So when she started abstaining, that's when I was just like, right, you know, it feels like I did it out of spite and stuff, which in hindsight I probably did. I'd wait for her to go bed, like I said, put on the internet, and that's when I'd start like looking at like arse related stuff because I wasn't seeing it in real life. What I thought a relationship is like just sex on tap. It's not going to stop. I'm going to be constantly like boning. It'd just be the most amazing thing in the world. And in reality, it's not like that. It's like once or twice a week if you're lucky, and you know you've got to make sure you're quiet so the neighbors don't shout and stuff. This for me is where porn is like it can be a little bit misleading, but for me the whole ass side of things, for me it was just like, obviously on the internet it's just visually appealing, just seeing like a lovely lady's like arsehole and just watching potentially another lady or a bloke sniffing it and things like that. I'm just like, that's what I want. I want a girl to be this cool in real life and just not care. I think it was this podcast you had a girl on, Amy, and literally just listening to her, like she is literally the coolest chick like I think I've ever heard. I just think she's just proper down to earth, and I think more people need to like listen to someone like her who just doesn't care. And she's grown up around it. We've all grown up around it, but certain people just take a different path later in life.
Absolutely. That's well said. I think we have the potential to make change, thankfully. I think people will eventually see that it's absurd enough that it is so taboo that like I can't say like people are going to be farting in a restaurant. That still seems improper. But I do think there is going to be a better understanding of I want to put this on foot fetish level. I want it to be on that level where I don't think people look at foot fetish with the same negativity that they may have looked at it even 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, if we have to go back. I don't know when the change happened, but it definitely seems like there is a comfort that has come with foot fetishism. For me, being in film, it seems like it's Tarantino, being the more admitted foot fetishist. But there may have been other things. There's 2 foot fetish podcasts as well. I'm sure they have done their work in normalizing that as well.
No, completely. And in all fairness, I've grown up around that because my brother, he's actually got like a foot fetish like himself. So it's like we often joke about it because obviously like I'm into farts and stuff, and he's into feet. But I just feel like having a foot fetish it's so much easier to come by because all they have to do is take their shoes and socks off, and then there it is. Whereas like the fetish that we share, it's something where timing is like a massive point in it. Like you have to be there at the right point in order to get off on it. If like your partner's on the other side of the room or even in a different room and you hear like a little toot, by the time you've got into the same room, it's over. It's forgotten about. It's something of the past. So a foot fetish for me is just it's something that's easy for me. It's like you can be on the beach walking past and you can see 2,000 pairs of feet like without even having to second glance. But with the whole farting thing, I just think it's such a unique thing, and like I touched upon before, it's for me it's that little kink that's just for me and the person doing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You'd mentioned in your emails to me, I don't think you mentioned it here as I recall, but you said after you told your fiance about your fetish, she happened to accidentally fart during foreplay. Which happened first? Like, did you tell her first and then that happened? Or did that happen and that lead to that conversation?
Do you know what? That's got me stumped because I can't rightly remember. I think I told her about the fetish afterwards. Yeah, it was that. It actually just come together in my head then. Because we were only together for a couple of months. And it wasn't even foreplay. There wasn't actually nothing sexual in there. But you'll probably know from past experience, like when blokes say like, "Do you fancy a massage?" or whatever, it always leads to the next level. Always, it's like without fail. I stripped her down. She was absolutely butt naked and stuff. Started rubbing her down, etc. And I got to her bum, and I was just like, I was genuinely just giving her like a glute massage. And I just happened to like move her right butt cheek, so it was like, so I got a good view of a butthole and a back fanny basically. And then she just let off like this little airy toot, and I was dying just to like indulge and bask in it. But with us only being together for a couple of months, I kind of like restrained myself because I didn't want her to feel awkward more than anything, and I didn't want also to like potentially ruin the relationship over something that she could find grotesque. So I did restrain myself, and I'll stand firm to that. I think I did pretty bloody well not to dive in nose first and just smell what ambient she had to offer.
Absolutely, for sure. But I mean, I'm not going to say what was right or wrong, but what was her reaction to that?
Because it didn't really make much of a noise. It was more of like just a type thing. She like looked round and like obviously she was like face down, so she kind of like looked around to see what my reaction was, and I literally just purposely tried not to change whatsoever because I didn't want her to feel embarrassed. So it's like I just maintained doing what I was doing, maintained like massaging a bum, and like I just didn't break my role as being the open brackets masseuse.
Interesting. I just had a thought. I don't want to pretend I'm a therapist, but like I just had a thought. I wonder if this moment set a tone for her in her mind, in which like, you say you like farts, but this moment came up and she perhaps has it stuck in her head that it's not, I don't know the answer to this. I'm not saying like push harder now, but like it's perhaps that this moment where, I guess she acted like she hadn't farted or was trying to see your reaction and you had no reaction, that she's like, she's even wondering, did I cause you to have the fetish because of this moment? Like maybe I've triggered it by farting during a massage that like that she maybe feels a guilt, perhaps, that she has brought this onto you. You know, from going from no reaction to, hey, honey, I like farts. I could see someone making that bad connection if they personalized it or wanted to. Maybe I'm wrong. What is your thoughts on any of that?
To be honest with you, I kind of like see where you're coming from, and like again, I'm no therapist, but who's to say what goes on in the complex mind that is the opposite gender to us? And quite rightly so, they'll probably say we've got a complex mind too. But I made it perfectly clear that I've had this fetish like well before her, and it's like I've tried with previous partners and things like this, and nothing happens. And there are instances like with my partner now where like we'll be cuddled up in bed and like we'll be spooning and she will let out like a little fart on my leg or something like that, and she knows I'm not like she knows I love it like regardless, and I've loved it for a long time. She knows she's not the instigator to bring this fetish out. I think more than anything, knowing what she's like in like with a burping and things like that, how she's just open with it. I think that's what gave me the confidence in speaking to this one, because I wanted to do it completely different with this girl that I'm with, because obviously I've had 2 failed relationships and I wanted to take a different approach with this one, not just with the fetish, but with everything in life. So I was trying to do things differently. So I've just got this like hell of a lot of respect for my partner that I'm with now. And it's like, I don't think I would ever make her feel like uncomfortable that she's brought this fetish on with me, because I've been so open from the start. She knows that I've had this for a long time, if you get where I'm coming from.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, you do have a past with this fetish from previous relationships, as you've told me. So it makes sense that she probably does understand that. It was just a wild thought I had. You know, I guess in a vacuum, what kind of I mean, you never know what kind of trauma people can bring on. Even mundane things, I think, can be highly traumatizing in the way of in the way they stick in our mind. Not necessarily like, oh, I'm paralyzed, but like this is stuck now. This is a solid core memory or whatever that's going to stay with me.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like when we first got together, we were quite experimental, like when it came to like sex and stuff. It's like she was quite willing to let me do like a lot of like butt stuff and that. But then as time's gone on, and like the dreaded honeymoon period that it seems to be only women go on, she's backed off quite a lot from like anal play and things like that. So I have to get it in when I can. But I feel that if she just remained how she was at the start, I think she was a lot more open. And this is where it's like thrown me off, really, like men relationship, because as time's gone on, you expect them to be a lot more confident and comfortable with you and stuff. But I feel it's kind of like taking a backward step when it comes down to stuff like this. And this is a one aspect of my relationship that I do question, and I would love to change in my partner just for her to be a little bit more just comfortable. Been together 4 years now, and I know she shits, I know she pisses, but yet she just remains like that secretive when it comes down to it. It's like still shutting the bathroom door and things like that. And I'm just the complete opposite.
Interesting. Interesting. What do you think changed, or do you have an idea of what may have changed between that time?
I have no idea. Like it's if I could put my finger on it, I would. And like if I'm completely honest, I think it will like solve so many arguments and stuff. But I just feel like at the start of the relationship, this has happened to me 3 times. Like my 3 major like relationships I've had, they all started off like giving me everything that I wanted, and it was amazing. Now, whether it's because I've got such a high sex drive, I've taken them too far, and they're just like, oh my god, just like give me a break. So maybe they've just like backed off a little bit, and obviously the first relationship, like with her abstaining, that was there's no answers for how she acted, because it's like I did restrain, then I'd make a move and things like that, but this was going on for months. And then the next partner, she was kind of similar, like, but she started off like so much better, and she gave it me for longer and that. But the partner who I'm with now, she was so open with like everything, but I just wish I told her the fetish at the start of the relationship, like near enough straight out, because I feel like if I did, she'll be a lot more accommodating for it rather than waiting for her to stop doing the butt stuff and then going, yeah, all right, whatever. And that's how she foresees it. Like she doesn't say, I'll do this for him because I know that he'll love it so much. Like she's just remains. She keeps that bit to herself.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're all complex creatures, people. It's a it's an interesting story. I hope you continue to get clarity, and I mean, ideally, what you desire, but at the very least, clarity in terms of changes and yeah. It seems like the way I hear it, it sounds like I guess the honeymoon phase or whatever was a time of closer intimacy, and I don't. Maybe that's normal, but I don't think that has to be the norm of like, oh, we're intimate and we have a lot of sex and whatever during our honeymoon phase, and then as we get into life phase, now we have to become dull suited people. Like I'm not sure. Maybe that is a mentality of people, of certain people. I'm not sure. I'm not like run into that, and I hang out with or hang out, or like I have friends with like poly people and whatever, and you see a lot of communication first of all, but enjoyment of sex in that community beyond ages. Like there's no age in which sex has to be no longer enjoyed, and yet I guess media, society, whatever would tell you that there is there is an idea that once a relationship becomes comfortable, there's an almost expected lovelessness to it. And I don't understand that. I don't think that's right. I'm not sure. But what is that? Why is that? These are the questions that I can't answer necessarily, but are definitely worth asking and trying to get to the bottom of, for each of ourselves. Like, I don't think there's a universal answer, but for each relationship we're in, for each of us, I think the question has to be asked and pondered.
Yeah, 100%. And without sounding like it's like a derogatory comment and things like that, I feel like a lot of honeymoon periods are literally like female related, because I think they're the ones that like set out at the start of a relationship to please the man as much as possible, to make them think that like the girls are the next best thing and much better than their ex and things like that. But then as time gets on, they get more and more comfortable, and then maybe it's the real then where they're just like they can just relax. Because for a girl, I feel like there's a lot more involved in sex and like with a bloke, because a bloke, as soon as he gets hard, it's just a case of like just going in, doing his business, emptying his load, and he's quite happy. But for a woman, I think there's a lot more involved to it, and I think a lot of women can't be bothered with the admin of getting ready for it. To be honest, I am 100% in agreement with you. Like, I don't get it. I've never have understood it, because if you both love each other, you both love that level of intimacy. Why does it need to die off? It's one of the best things in the world, and for blokes, it's their way of showing like how intimate they are, because it's the one moment where they're concentrated, solely fixated on the person in front of them, not on the football game or the soccer game in our country, or whatever they want to do. It's they're concentrating on their woman, and they want to please that woman. So I don't understand the honeymoon period. I never have done. I don't think I ever will. And it's probably one of the most frustrating things in a relationship. And not everyone goes through it, and the people that don't go through it seem to be the ones that have an opinion. And I think that's wrong. I think there's more people out there that are struggling in the relationship because the honeymoon period's died off, and the people don't feel confident in having the conversations and banter about like sexual like fetishes and things like that with the partner, because they don't have it enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely not an easy, it's not a, snap and there's going to be a solution. I mean, and each solution is probably going to be individual to every relationship, but I do think I go back to communication. I think communication, that's not going to fix it, because obviously you've demonstrated and talked about you do communicate.
Yeah.
So it's not a catch-all. It takes two to comprehend, I guess, the what is being communicated. And for some people it won't work out. So some people, I'm not saying your relationship, but I'm saying that aspect of sexuality won't be satisfied, or has to be satisfied in other ways. But you mentioned how like she'd fart on your knee or whatever. So I do feel still there is a positivity in your direction. But I do wonder about the changing dynamic, the changing sexuality of that. It's an interesting question that you're not alone in your experience with. So it is an open question about, in relationships that fully seem like they have all the right aspects, the friendship, the intimacy, in enough ways that it's satisfying, that what happens, what changes, and why, and is that something that can be communicated through in a way that both parties are comfortable with. Perhaps there is just a, like you said, almost an expectation to perform in the beginning of a relationship, and then as the relationship becomes stable, now now we're even if you're not married, we're hubby and wife. We just watch the TV together, and we eat a little dinner that one of you made, and that's life. But I think there are people out there that hunger for more, and maybe it's even something that more people can get back into, and are simply, they've hit a stumbling block. I'm not sure what the answer is for you, or really anyone. I can't answer the question, but I do think thinking about all that, and definitely discussing it, and trying to basically not beat around the bush in terms of your desires, even in terms of like the well, maybe especially in terms of the non-fetish sexuality as well. I think there's an importance to having your needs met, both parties, both people in a relationship. It should be like, there's nothing that can bring more joy to people, I think, than connecting on that relationship level. I don't even think it has to be monogamous. If you do it with 3 people, 4 people, whatever, I think you can still experience that love and intimacy among people. And that's why I feel like sex can be such a great expression of that, and such a relieving expression of that. That's in our like core being. So to like, I don't know, not procreate, but to like christen the relationship with that sexuality, I think is such a celebration. I mean, I'm not saying maybe there's people who are happy and they don't have sex, and that's cool too. But I feel like if you are people that are desiring sex, that it is like, that's the height of it. Like, that's relationship and sex are kind of the cookies and cream. Like, they seem like they are completely intermingled as the expression of, like, giving gifts, having sex with each other. That seems like those two parts of being relationships are the same thing in essence. You are providing for your partner, and they for you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's like I used an analogy. God, I couldn't get my words out. And like with my partner to describe like how much like I enjoy sex, because she said like she does say to me, she goes, "God, all you want out of this relationship is sex," and I'm just like, no, I've got everything in the relationship, but all I want is that like a little bit more like from you, without sounding like I was trying to like control her and stuff. I was just saying like, I've got everything. I just need that cherry on top of the cake. If I had that cherry on top of the cake where you're a little bit more open, I wouldn't ever have to like question you or say do this, do that. You're just going to be this open book that I can easily read. But instead, you remain. Unfortunately, sometimes you lock it in a frigging box as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, I definitely hope that box can open up for you. Not just sexually, but it seems like spiritually, emotionally as well. It's interesting. Like in talking to you, and obviously I don't know your fiance, I don't know your relationship, but like in talking to you, you definitely don't seem like you have a unclarity or difficult in communication. So I hope that can come across. I hope maybe she can awaken from what is perhaps I'm seeing, from the outside as some kind of stumbling block or stopping block.
I'm just hoping that whether I'm just holding on to it, I don't know. Like I obviously don't know what's going on inside her head. I feel like we communicate well on like a relationship basis and stuff, but there are aspects that I do question. But then there's other aspects where I'm just like, actually, she's pretty cool. I can carry on like doing what I'm doing. I would never ever say I'm unhappy in the relationship. I've got everything that I need. It's just there's just that little cherry that I just want on top of the cake, and like it's quite hard to find, especially for someone who kind of like restrains from being so open and just relaxed. That's what it comes down to. I think it just comes to just relaxing around someone who's told you that I don't care what you do. You can do anything. Nothing will ever put me off you. So just relax. But I just feel like she just remains. Is the word unrelaxed or just up? I don't think uptight's the correct word, but just she restrains from opening up too much. I feel that she might feel too vulnerable if she just opens up and just like lets everything go and just no pun intended again. But she might just feel that I might start questioning her, or I might be repulsed by like what's secretly hidden.
Possibly, and I'm sure you've reassured her, but again, how far can that go? It's an open question. I do hope that continues to make progress on your end. No pun intended, because it does seem like you say, everything else in the relationship seems to be good, but it's almost like falling away from this intimacy aspect.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I think I said 100% to everything that you've said quite a lot.
To get back a little more tied into the fetish, did you grow up with any like shows or media that had like farts in it?
Well, I grew up watching things like Ren and Stimpy, and obviously like The Simpsons, South Park, and things like that. And obviously there was the odd episode like in it with things like that. Obviously, like a Family Guy as well, quite open with like flatulence and stuff. But I'd say I wouldn't say any of it have a factor on how I perceive the fetish now. Like I put it all down to when I was like when my partner at the time was abstaining. I'd say that's where it all kicked off, because I never had access to porn as much as what I would have liked being a teenage lad. But the only computer we're having was under the stairs for everyone to use, and it was just it was a no-go area. And I didn't have a smartphone till I was like 20 something. I only had like the old Nokia bricks, and it was just it is what it is. Like we had magazines and things like that. Like obviously, as soon as I turned 18, I managed to get like a few magazines and stuff. But for me, I got bored of magazines because I liked seeing the motion, the realism in like seeing like a video and things like that. It was much more fulfilling to see motion in a naked woman than just a picture. So pictures don't really do it for me. It's all motion related.
So you wouldn't say necessarily that, and perhaps this is because more the fetish was triggered in a post-pubescent context for you, that you weren't like you weren't feeling uncomfortable necessarily, like seeing farts in TV shows, or Ren and Stimpy I know had farts fairly often. Family Guy obviously has farts in a much more face farting context.
Yeah.
But you weren't triggered to feel any kind of sexuality or whatever, like seeing these things at the time.
No, because obviously watching Ren and Stimpy, I was young. I was only about 8, or probably could have even been younger. So obviously, when you're 8, I don't think you ever get those like feelings towards that. You might feel a little stirring or something like that, but apart from that, it's like all girls had cuties back then, and it was like it's not until you hit a certain age when you start like admiring women a lot more before you start having these like sexual fantasies or fetishes about it. Like the first one I experienced was like my brother with feet, and he's 2 years older than me and stuff. So that's probably when I started like first looking at women, was noticing that my brother was like he was liking women's feet and stuff. And I don't think he even has that fetish anymore. Like, if I'm honest, I think he grew out of it. But just growing up with someone that was 2 years older than you, and then you're seeing how they're growing up, I think you automatically grow up a lot more quicker than what you would do if you were the eldest or if you were a lonely child.
For sure. For sure. I'm curious to hear if your brother grew out of that fetish for sure. I mean, here's the thing: if it's a juvenile fetish, sometimes that does happen. I believe that does happen. I think that happened to a lot of our fetishists. I think that's why a fair number of like fetishists that are like writers or other creators um, disappear and delete their stuff, um, or they're embarrassed and shamed by it, which is unfortunate. But I think there's also the aspect that, maybe it wasn't that big of a part of my sexuality to begin with. Maybe I just prefer other sex, or I'm okay with just eating ass. I don't need someone to fart in my face or whatever.
Yeah.
In that aspect that people do explore, I think people will find that no, this isn't everything I wanted, or maybe I want something else a lot more. Maybe farts was like that was cool then, but like now I'm really into armpits or whatever. Just as an
Yeah.
example, like I think there's a progression, especially when you discover these fetishes or start having these fetishes young. It's gonna change with you.
I think the whole thing, like with my brother, like I obviously don't know what's gone on inside his head. He doesn't go on about feet and stuff now, but I just think the relative ease of the subject, because as I said, growing up, not having a computer and stuff, it was just easy for him to, I don't know, maybe look in like a clothes catalogue and see like a woman's bare feet, and that was his easy way to relieve himself. But for me, I didn't know I had like this fetish until like I stumbled across it. And I wouldn't say I stumbled across it by accident, because obviously my algorithm took me to everything related to like ass play and anal lingus and etc. etc. Then it went on to smelling, and I was like, "Ooh, look at this video!" And I just think it's with me, it grew progressively, but kind of made a massive jump, because I went from obviously being a kid wanting to know what a girl's vagina looked like, especially when it was aroused and wet, etc. And I just kind of just I don't understand, like, in my life, the sudden jump from the vaginal thing to just anal. Like, it was literally like a click of the fingers. It wasn't a case of just pondering on the edge of it. I just kind of jumped in the deep end without any armbands on in it, and now I wouldn't think of anything else that I'd prefer to search for. I just love everything related to ass.
Absolutely. That is one of the most interesting aspects. I mean, you have many interesting aspects. I'm not lowering it down to one, but I find that curious too about the when that switch took place and how that switch took place of I mean, essentially, being into the normal sexuality and then coming into the fart sexuality. Like, I get the progression from, I forget what you called it, tushy,
Yeah, sleeping tushy.
sleep tushy, yeah, and other aspects like that to farting, that I get. But how it went from a vaginal focus to an ass focus seems to be the thing that I mean, I'm curious about, and I don't do you don't seem to have an answer for. You're wondering about yourself.
Yeah, like I'd probably say that like the one triggering point that I could probably like relate to it to some degree. I'm not saying this is the answer. Is the fact that ever since I first discovered porn, like my favorite view has always been like the woman bending over and showing like her ass and a vagina and things like that. But I just think the whole thing, like with the ass in itself, is like the fact that you don't necessarily always go to that thing. You always look an inch and a half below it and look at the vagina and stuff. I just think I liked the fact that I could be a little bit I don't really want to say different, because I wouldn't say it's different, but just the fact that it's not frowned upon, but at the same time, it's not everyone's cup of tea. Whereas like I'm just like, I'm all about the bum. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I share your sentiment because I'm not big into breasts or vagina. I mean, I'm not gonna I'll take it if it's being passed around, but like I'm not that wouldn't be my go-to, I guess, if my choice was there. Is there a kink scene where you are, and have you been out into that kink scene, or is that something you'd like to explore?
It's something that I would love to explore, but again, obviously being with my partner and things like that, it's something that I don't really I don't feel comfortable enough like divulging into it, like with obviously having a part. If I was single, I think I'd be doing it and searching for it constantly. But having a partner, I feel like that she might obviously be judgmental of the fact that I'm potentially looking to get relief elsewhere.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, I'm just curious. I mean, I tend to ask everyone because it is I enjoy the scene. I definitely like being in the scene. You just feel like you're among like minds, even if there are no specific like ass fetishists there that you know of. I mean, there may be, but they're not talking about it generally.
No, if there was, if there was like something out there, I feel it's something like I could get on board with. It's whether I don't know. I don't really know how to word it without sounding like I'm like disrespecting my partner, but I would always remain loyal. I would never do anything. But when it comes to like the kink scene, I feel that it's a it's a short stepping stone away from like potentially paying for someone to do it for you and then like cheating. And I will 100% remain loyal to my partner. Like there's no one else I want it to do it for me. I want my partner to do it, and that's the be all and end all of that.
For sure, for sure. Well, I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of non-sexuality in the kink scene. There's some people that merely go and I'm getting spanked or whatever. And sure, I'm sure both parties are experiencing some sort of relief, but by all accounts, they're not having sex, as it were. But I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily. I'm sure there are like uncouth people in the kink community, but I generally think most people are uh, either getting their jollies with people in their relationship or with full consent of the people in the relationship. So whether it be poly or this is just a kink partner or what have you, that's one of my appeals of like the poly and kink communities is their level of communication, is the level of, because one, in kink you have to be safe, in poly you have to communicate so nobody gets hurt emotionally. It's appealing because average society, vanilla society, as it were, doesn't encourage that level of communication and openness. There's almost even in dating, there's an expectation of game playing and a need to, in fact, to be seen in to some degree. So it seems like, and I'm sure there is both of these things. I'm sure there are games that happen in poly and kink, but the point is the level of communication that's required to make those relationships work positively, I think would do well to be carried over into the vanilla society, as it were.
Yeah, correct. Like I again completely 100% agree with you. I think everything you've said I've 100% agreed with, and I, I can't fault anything that you're saying, because everything you're saying is just ticking all the boxes in, I won't say the struggles, but the questions and answers that I've had in like similar situations in my life with my partner and stuff. It's just getting people on board, like to. I wouldn't necessarily say understand the fetish, but I think a lot of people seem to think like the fetish is purely like sexual, and it's not necessarily just that. It's other things. It's like smells, noises, and things like that. And like I said, the invasive trust side of things. That's just, there's a lot more factors to it than just sex related. And I think the more people that understand that, like, I think the better. I think it will make the fetish a lot better in the future if people actually sat and understood it rather than just thinking, oh my god, that's gross. Someone fine. It smells. Not all farts smell anyway. Like some of them are just like 90% air.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is kind of the I mean I say it all the time, so I've probably have like 50. There's the reason the show exists. But the show does definitely exist to help bring nuance to this fetish. As all fetishes do, I think need that nuance brought to them. This is the one I have some, I don't know if authority is the right word, but some capacity to offer some clarity to, and bring other people on to offer even more clarity to even me that I'm learning. There is a view that this fetish, you assume farting, you assume face sitting, but not every person who wants to be farted around or on or whatever wants it on their face. Some people want to be farted on their dick. Some people don't want to be farted on their body at all. Some people want to be clothed. So there's you could argue there's less intimacy there because you're not sticking your face in someone's ass crack, maybe your nose or lips against their asshole, or even panties, which may be too intimate for some people. But you don't have, some people might want it to be wear jeans or latex or some other type of material. Some people, like I said, some people may not even want you to be on their face at all. They just want to be, you're in the kitchen and they hear you fart. It's like, oh, that was hot. And like, there are so many non-intimate ways to take this fetish, as I'm sure there's non-intimate ways to take foot fetish, non-intimate ways to take many different fetishes we can think of. So yeah, to open people up inside and outside the fetish to the reality of the nuance and the level of almost control, you could say, that you can take this fetish, I think is incredible. Because I mean, I think some people, they have this fetish, but they're mostly like eating ass and worshiping ass, and the farts come on occasion, and that's their enjoyment as well. Because it is like, if your partner's not gassy, you're kind of stuck. I mean, there's some hacks I heard, like what is it, sugar-free candy has a some chemical that can make you gassy. There's pumping air, there's blowing air, there's this and that. So there's ways to hack it for sure. But if you're like, oh, I'm all about the natural too, then you're at the whim of your partner to like eat a burrito, and they may even, eat that food and not get gassy still. It's still a possibility. But this fetish just has such a wide scope around it. It's really an ass fetish with a more specific attraction to farting as an aspect. I mean, for me, and maybe I'm not the best quote unquote fart fetishist. For me, it's I the domination and farting, they have to go together. Those two are interlinked in a way that domination might get me closer to being aroused, but farting alone wouldn't. Just hearing a girl fart, I think like, wow, that was abnormal. That was cool. But I don't think I would be like aroused necessarily. Whereas other people may. They're like, wow, that never happens. That is so taboo. Whatever. I've never heard a girl fart. I'm like completely off the handle in terms of how aroused I am.
Like in relation to the fetish, like alone, it's I don't know. I just want people to be more like accepting of everything. And I think I touched upon this like in an email, like saying that like I feel that with us being in a society now where we have to like accept like so many things and stuff, I feel like even things like fetishes and things like that, I think it's going to be one of those things that's like going to be not frowned upon as such, just like, all right, this might be one of these things that's come in with all this, like, I wouldn't say wokeism, but it might have opened the door to people being a lot more accepting of people's differences.
I certainly hope so. Like I get that. Yeah, I mean that was really the coattails I was riding as well in wanting to produce this show. Like I had friends that were producing kink podcasts, and I'm like, this is our time then. If kink is really coming into awareness and acceptance, and there's some evidence for that happening, then there's no reason this shouldn't be pushed as well. I mean, I had my own ego ideas as well. It's like, I want, look at me, I'm a fetishist, blah blah blah. I want to be famous, etc., etc. But after those ideas kind of get like I'm like who like even people outside, it hasn't brought me any undue attention. Like, it's not like I'm now the subject of ridicule amongst a bunch of normal people who are like making fun of the show. Like, you get an odd bad review or whatever, but mostly it's done nothing. Like, it's I'm sure it's reached some people who actually give a shit, but as far as like people wanting to be a troll about it or make fun of me or make fun of any of the guests, I haven't seen anything from the outside. I can't speak to anyone of the guests and like their friends. Like, Jules talks about talking to his friends and things like that. But like, as far as like like a troll army or whatever descending upon this and like just pranking us or whatever, I haven't seen that, because I hope that there is an idea that this is just something that can be accepted. There's going to be assholes. That's going to happen. But I think for the most part, I hope that this is part of that wave of sexual acceptance on a wider and a broader spectrum than we've seen in previous sexual movements.
The whole thing with people commenting, that's one thing that does my head in. It's like they must have actually had to search something related to farts in order to like get your podcast up, like in order to get like the odd like bad review and things like that. But what interest is it to them, like for them to comment on it? Like they don't have an interest in it, and that's the one thing that like really grinds my gears. It's like I see it on Reddit and things like that, like on these like certain like fart. I can't remember what sites I go on and things like that, but certain fart things, people are commenting on saying, "Oh my god, like this is gross." Why go on it then? If it's not your cup of tea, you can clearly see in the title it's fart related. Why go on it?
Yeah, it's weird. There's a certain sense to like I need to punk you. I need you to know what I feel about you, and it's like, you don't. Like, I don't need to. Like, it's cool you feel that, whatever, feel it. Be you. But like, you don't need to bring that to me.
But no need to air their dirty laundry.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say you like enjoy having this fetish? And what do you feel about it, like, more broadly?
To be honest with you, me having this fetish, I love having this fetish because I think I touched upon it before. The fact that it's unique to me, and it's like not one of my friends has it. No one's like experienced it, and things like that. And for me, it's just like it's my little thing. Whether people are grossed out by it or what, to be honest, I couldn't give two shits about people being like grossed out by it, because I'm not. It's something that gets me going. I've liked it for a long time, and it's my thing. Like it makes me different than everyone else. We're not lemmings. Like everybody is different.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Do you feel like the farting is the kink aspect that you're aware of, anyways, that is the top for you? Like, there's nothing higher than that?
No, to be honest with you, like being inexperienced in it, I feel like begrudging like commenting, like so to speak, because it's like I'm commenting from experience, but my only experience is through media and the odd two on the leg and stuff. But I just feel that if my partner was to come to my terms and does it for me, I think I will hit my fantasy goal, and that's what I'm striving towards. I'm hoping my partner chills out and she opens up and, like I said before, gets that book out the box.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think? We kind of touched about it, but more I guess directed to the actual question. What do you think about the future of the fetish, whether it be for yourself or on the larger scale, or both?
I feel that more things like this, like what you're doing, and that, like making people aware that it is actually a fetish, and it's not something that's like touched upon as like gross and things like that. I think the more people that come to terms with it and like open up like I've done, like other people like that have come on your podcast and like spoke about it and things like that. I feel that if more people are just a little bit more open and honest in a relationship, like I don't mind if you fart, hun, like do it on my face if you're riding it and things like that, and they're not bothered by it, whether it's a fetish or not. I feel farting has numerous aspects. It's humorous for people like us. It's sexual. It's very gratifying. Like I absolutely love it, but it's just getting my partner to do it for me to actually make that comment and have that experience. But I feel for the fetish going forward, I feel that more people are more open these days, and I think that it's not as taboo as what it once was, regardless of the odd person that might turn their nose up at it and go, "Oh, that's gross, that's not me." And we should go back to eating caviar and relaxing, because it's probably going to be the more up end side of the street, the more richer folk that are going to begrudge it, whereas like the more working class people are the ones that tend not to care, and we don't have an image that they've got to pretend that they are all the time.
Now, see, that's why I say the thing about the more civilized is the incorrect word to use, but it's kind of the more harsh word, the raw word, maybe to use. I mean, I think that's the aspect of like my father. I mean, my dad grew up an immigrant in India. Like, there's a clear difference in just looking at him, how Indians feel about farting and shitting and whatever, than say, my American mom, my, American born mom, who, was also free in the bathroom as well, maybe as a result of being, married to my dad. But there's a clear divide in how there's almost a class divide in the acceptability of this behavior. And that's really unfortunate, because it shouldn't be a class thing. But I agree with you that I think that is part of what drives it. I think I say it more as a societal level, but I think there is something to that of like, I'm a proper person. I'm this type of person. I don't engage in that kind of dirty activity. And we know some fetishes look at the fetish in that direction, like the farting, the ass, is a dirty aspect, and that's what they like about it. But I don't know. I think for normalization, like that's a canyon that needs to be maybe looked at and analyzed about, like, because taboo, if you like taboo, then you like dirty and like, I mean, not necessarily, but that's the aspect. Like, this is a dirty secret aspect, versus if you want to normalize it, the dirtiness kind of drifts away. It needs to, like, it can't, you can't, it'd be harder to feel comfortable about something that is also dirty. So it's just an interesting, there's so many interesting, as people talk about their sexuality and and the odd or different sexuality, it becomes interesting and clear, because so much has to be discussed and talked about and worked out, and like how, and like none of us have any control of it. We can expose ourselves to people in an effort to normalize and say like, oh, I know a fart fetishist now, that's not so weird anymore. That's all we can do. Beyond that, there's interesting questions about, are farts and whatever always going to be taboo and dirty? Can we even normalize the ass to some aspects? Because I think sometimes the ass itself is taboo,
Yeah.
So I don't want to get off on a rant in which I can just like ask a bunch of questions and give no answers. But like, I really appreciate, like, we've come to the end here, but I really appreciate like talking with you, because it's been a very, I think, a fairly deep look into relationships, fetish, just in a way we haven't really talked about. This is what I want to do more going forward, but like, I really appreciate you coming on and being so open and having this talk with me. It's been amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to add or end on before we go?
No, I think you touched upon everything really. Just literally saying that it's been a really good in-depth chat and stuff, and I can't appreciate what you're doing for the fetish, because you're making more people aware than what people sat at home trying to get the girlfriends to do it for them. That's not really making people aware, but what you're doing, you've taken it to the next level and just making people out there that have got the fetish. Because I stumbled upon it like on the off chance, really, because I was like listening to Panty Nectar and things like that, and then all of a sudden I was just like, I wonder if there's a fart fetish thing, and then I stumbled upon you, and then that was it. I then contacted you, and then here we are.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love it. I love to hear that, because that's exactly, that's my hope. That's the goal. If this show does nothing else, building a community among the fetishists, that means the world to me, and I think would make us all feel warmer, if nothing else. But I think we'll do more than that. But if nothing else, I think that would be a job well done.
Yeah, 100%, mate. 100%. Carry on doing what you're doing, and before you know it, you'll be the Joe Rogan of fart fetishes.
That's right. I maybe go more Howard Stern. He was a little more like, he probably could actually get women to fart on him, I bet. All right, Steve, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been an amazing talk. Thank you so much.
No problem, mate, and thank you for listening as well.
Of course, my pleasure.